Good evening. It's Monday, September 12th. It's now 6:05 p.m. This meeting of the Klein ISD Board of Trustees is now open. Representing the quorum tonight are Ms. Georgianne Reitmeyer, Mr. Steve Simzak, Mr. Rick Mann, and myself, Stephen Smith. As provided by the Texas Government Code, the Board of Trustees will now go into closed session in accordance with sections 551.071, private consultation with the board's attorney regarding all matters as authorized by law, including board governance, 551.072, discussing purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real property, 551.074, discussing employment, evaluation, or discipline of personnel, including board governance and including superintendent evaluation and contract, 551.076, discussing security personnel and devices, 551.082, discussing disciplinary matters or complaints regarding school children and or school district employees, 551.0821, discussing personally identifiable information about public school students, and 551.087, deliberation regarding economic development negotiations. The meeting of the Board of Trustees will reconvene in public at approximately 7 p.m. Good evening. It's now 7 p.m. and this meeting of the Klein ISD Board of Trustees is reconvened. If you've not already done so, please silence your electronic devices. Thank you all for joining us at tonight's meeting. We're a school district of 50,700 students and approximately 6,700 employees. We're always delighted when staff members or members of the community join our meetings. You'll note on tonight's agenda that a district resident, employee, vendor, or potential vendor can address the board for one of four specific reasons. If anybody would like to address the board during citizen inquiry tonight and have not already done so, please sign up with our board secretary, Mr. Steve Simzak. Tonight, Mr. Ronnie Anderson will lead us in prayer, followed by Rachel Ball, the first time we've had a Girl Scout lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Mr. Anderson.
Sure. All right, please pray with me. Gracious God, thank you for giving us another night. Thank you for all these kids, 50,000 plus kids. Thank you for every jewel and gem that you've blessed our district with. I just pray that you would keep raising leaders who have a spirit of serving you and serving them and not themselves, and just keep bringing leaders so we can celebrate them and so they can impact these kids' lives. I just pray that each campus remains a safe place for each child, and every time they walk through the doors, there's a sense of peace, your light, and safety and grace throughout them and dwelling in the hallways. Be with us tonight, that we'd have sound minds, we'd reflect your will, and we would just continue to keep working hard. In your name, amen.
Rachel, I may have introduced you as Rachel Ball, and if I did, I'm sorry. It's Rachel Rawl.
It's
and
not
thank you
Rawl.
for being here.
Will you please join me in saying the Pledge of Allegiance to the American flag? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Saying the pledge to the Texas flag. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible.
Thank you, Rachel. We're delighted to have you here.
Good job, Rachel.
School board meetings are conducted in strict accordance with Texas law. We may not vote on any item that's not on the agenda. And in fact, we are not allowed to discuss any item that's not on the agenda. All of our voting must be done in public. However, there are certain things that we can discuss in private, such as personnel, discipline of students, acquisition of school sites, school security, and certain legal matters. But even then, the voting must be done in public. Please understand that this meeting is for the board to discuss deliberate, and take action. So I'd ask that you refrain from making comments or any public demonstration. The superintendent, in consultation with the board president, issues the agenda and notice of meeting 1 week in advance of the Monday meeting. If board members have questions, they'll often contact the superintendent directly, and therefore when they come to the meeting, they're prepared to act. So if you're here beyond the intermission when we get to our action items, and it appears we're moving along kind of quickly, it's because the board members may have considered things and gotten their questions answered in advance. We deeply appreciate the public trust you have bestowed upon us, and we will continue to work diligently with the administration on behalf of your children. The next item will be recognitions. Each meeting lately we have recognized a different segment of our society, and tonight we want to recognize first responders. It's particularly appropriate tonight because of 9/11 occurring yesterday. We've seen many first responders honored over the last few days. But even if that had not occurred, we would have recognized first responders tonight. So, if you are now or ever have been in your life a first responder, being EMS, fireman, firewoman, law enforcement, emergency room, or anything else, we'd like to recognize you. Now, in the past, I heard that in doing this, some people were too timid to stand up. It's kind of hard to imagine a first responder being timid, but I guess that happens. So please, if you now or ever have been a first responder, please stand, and we'd like to honor you with a round of applause. A second tradition we've had as of late is to hear Moments in History, Klein History, by Mr. Wunderlich. And he has done a series of presentations on Klein history. Tonight is his final chapter. So please, Mr. Wunderlich, let us hear your comments tonight.
Thank you, Mr. President. If anyone would look at the map of Harris County where the school district boundaries are shown, no one would disagree that our school district has a very extremely odd-shaped entity. But back in the 20s and early 30s, when at that time, before the establishment of a school district, Klein community's boundaries, if it indeed had them, would be possibly to a little bit west of Highway 75, which is now I-45, and to the west would have been just a little distance before you get to what was called the Tomball Road, which is now 249. Our northern boundary would have been a little bit on this side of Spring Creeks, quite real close to where our district is now, that boundary. And our southern boundary would have been almost to Jackrabbit Road, which is now FM 1960. Remember, our residents at that time were about 98% farmers, and they avoided frontage on the county roads or especially state highways because that would enhance the property values. Nobody had any intention of selling, and higher values just simply equated to higher taxes. So they gladly let Spring have both sides of Highway 75 and Cy-Fair the western half and north of 1960. Bad decisions. And to make matters worse, the county tax assessor's office drew the boundary lines on the tax collector's maps. Don't know from where, but he did not follow the original meets and bounds as determined by the county school board. But nonetheless, they appeared on the official tax maps. And it wasn't until the early 1970s that the subdivisions of Champions and Huntwick were developed, and Stewart Title Company, who was selected by the developers to guarantee the title to their purchasers, discovered that Cy-Fair had been collecting the taxes on on a portion of Klein property, and therefore the Klein taxes on those new home sites were delinquent for about 50 years. Now, Cy-Fair had no intention, no interest whatsoever to reimburse us for those taxes that they had collected. And Klein Board was not really ready to write all of that off. So their brand new general counsel advised them that that was why they had built the courthouse. Now, the first step in that was a half-day hearing with the county school board. And at the end of that, we presented our matter, and so did the residents with their representative. And at the end of the session, the chairman of the county school board said that the decision would be announced at the following week's meeting. They met every week. Back then, as now, I guess still, all of the county school board meetings were opened with a prayer. And at that second meeting, well, let me say that at the first meeting, the room was packed with Cy-Fair residents who did not want to lose the school association with that their children had begun. Likewise, at the second meeting, they were there in numbers, standing room only. But at the opening prayer, the board member who was giving that was praying that the residents in attendance would accept the decision that was about to be announced. When he said that, I knew exactly where we were going, and at the end of that prayer, I wanted to shout a loud amen. but I contained myself. Their decision moved the boundary lines so that the residential area would be transferred to Cy-Fair, but we would keep the north side and south side of 1960, which was commercial property, had no children to educate, and the tax revenue was considerably greater than the home values. At the reading of that decision, it was met with loud, vociferous booing by the residents, and the room was vacated forcefully. Thankfully, that decision was never appealed, and now that valuable commercial property is now and forever KISD. About a year later, we found ourselves again in the courthouse, this time on the federal level. Congress had just passed the Civil Rights Act of 1964, which mandated the end of segregated schools all across the United States. About the same time, we realized that we were outgrowing the high school facility, which was located right behind this building, and Klein bought a new site at the intersection of Louetta and Stubner Airline Roads. First phase of that construction was just ending when the law was passed, and we were now ready to accept all students of all races in the new facility. However, we still maintained an elementary school in the west side of our district for the African American elementary students. It was Corville Elementary, and another one in the Garden City Park subdivision in the extreme southern end of our district for the African American families living there. Now, up until that time, once those students finished their 8 grades in school, if they wanted to continue in high school, Klein bused them to the high school in Tomball or to Aldine, and we reimbursed those two school districts with the amount of money that we received from the state of Texas, plus an additional sum out of our operating budget as well. But in 1965, Klein was ready to accept all of the high school students and did so without a single notable unpleasant episode during the transition. A tremendous tribute to all of the high school students and the residents of Klein School District. Many, many areas could not make the same statement. However, our elementary schools were literally bursting at the seams, and we had two new schools on the drawing boards, large schools, Northampton and Greenwood Forest. And it was agreed with all of the residents of the school district that Corville and Garden City Park would continue for the rest of that year until the new schools would be opened the following fall. Everybody was happy with that. I say everybody, I should say everybody in Klein was happy about that. But there's a place called Washington, D.C. that was most unhappy. And shortly thereafter, we were notified that by the Department of Health, Education, and Welfare that they were going to conduct a hearing to determine why we had not complied with the new law. The hearing was to take place in Dallas. The federal government chose the venue. We had nothing to do with that. They wanted it as far away from Klein as they could get it, and they got it. But at that hearing, we showed them, we demonstrated that our high school was integrated and that we were simply waiting for the carpenters to drive the last nails and the masons to set the last bricks, and then we would close Garden City Park and Corville and fully integrated. That satisfied the Department of Health, Education, and Welfare, and they issued their decision accordingly. Thought we were home free. No. The moment that he closed his books, an attorney from the Justice Department stood up and said, made a statement for the benefit of the press, we are going to file suit within 30 days against all school districts who are not fully integrated as of that date. This would be in the form of a criminal action against the school districts. A little more teeth than the Department of Health, Education, and Welfare. It was rather defiant. Now, there were 34 school districts in the Houston jurisdiction, Houston Federal Court, federal jurisdiction, who were affected. Up by then, there were many school districts who were involved in private litigation between residents of their district and their school district, but they were stuck in the privates, in the general civil litigation, and no telling when would come to trial. But there were none filed against Klein because everybody was happy with the progress and the education that was going on here. But we were called into court with the other 33 school districts, and I was real pleased there too that we were the only school district that didn't have to make any changes. We showed what we had done with the high school and intermediate school and what we were going to do that fall with the elementary school, and judge ruled in our favor. The disgruntled U.S. attorneys who were present, they immediately gave notice of appeal, but their notice was not backed up by the Attorney General in Washington, and it never went any further, and the judge's ruling became final. We were still at that time a small school district. We had one high school, one intermediate school, and three elementary schools. 4 elementary schools, 2 that were going to be closed, and 2 more new ones that were going to be opened. New subdivisions were then announced in Klein. That's plural, subdivisions, S. Then we experienced one more tragedy. Will they ever end? Our superintendent, Dr. Randall Simpson, was killed in an automobile train accident in Central Texas, and our school board now had another chore, one with which this board is now very familiar, hiring a new superintendent. They did not seek the help of a search team. I guess a little bit of the old German frugality was still lingering on. But with the help of the county school board, they announced the position and got about 12 to 15 applications. They interviewed about half of them, and when it was all done, unanimously chose a young deputy superintendent out of the Houston Independent School District, Dr. Don Collins. Yes, he had applied for the job, but did he really know what he was getting into? Yes, he was a visionary, but could he possibly have envisioned all of the complex, new and numerous, sometimes controversial demands that would be coming into his office from all directions? And yes, he was young and healthy and energetic, but would all of these demands and challenges eventually take their toll against this eager and capable leader? When he came, the old education systems in KISD, practices in Klein, were becoming history, and the same could be said about the Klein community. Dr. Collins readily recognized this and decided that some changes were going to be made. He often said that if a community with a strong past is to maintain that strength, it would have to maintain the heritage that initially made it strong. And he instituted steps to accomplish just that. As we know, he initiated the policy of naming the schools after the founding families. He started the Klein Deutschfest, and he pushed for the passage in the Texas legislature of a bill that established Klein ISD as Klein, Texas. And while looking back, he simultaneously looked ahead to and directed Klein's fascinating future. He earned the admiration of and gratitude of the entire Klein community and of all of his colleagues across the state of Texas. And then, as we know, after 29 years at the helm, Dr. Collins stepped into a well-earned retirement. And now, as we bid farewell to Dr. Kane, the wheel is again handed over and passed on. Our district owes a Texas-sized salute to Dr. Kane. And if he were here tonight instead of in England, we would all salute him. But Dr. Champion, as we may now be looking into a somewhat new era, the eyes of our community are now upon you, and all of the residents, to a person, are coming with one word: welcome.
Indeed.
Because the hopes, the plans, and most importantly, the confidence and solid background of the Klein ISD and of the community from whence it was named is behind you. It is really unchanged. I hope that these little visits with our past, Dr. Champion, will give you some insight of just what you have inherited and where you will now live and just what this area is made of, what made it what it is. And we hope that you will learn to love these 88 square miles called Klein, Texas, just as much as we all do. And Mr. Chairman, all of this was Mr. Anderson's idea. And I hope that over the past few months I was able to shed a little light on the past century and a half of the development of Klein. Had a lot of fun revisiting these days, different days that we call yesterday. I spoke of a few, but for various reasons, many more were left undisturbed. They simply need to rest in peace. I wish I could experience Klein's future, but the normal forces of nature tell me, no, that's not going to happen. I would like, however, an insight, if only I could, but that too is cannot happen. Just as if 20 years ago someone would have publicly but accurately made a prediction as to the growth and utility of our smartphones, he probably would have been picked up by men in the white coats. And so today, if someone accurately made a prediction about Klein's 20-year future, it would be met with the same skepticism, because we just don't know. But this we do know. Of this, there is no denying. When we see the children that are introduced to you all at every monthly meeting, or when we see the graduates, the top 10 seniors at the spring academic banquet, when we see these young men and women applying for and being accepted and graduating from the finest universities in this state, or when we learn, as we did last year, that 2 of our schools, Dory and Klein Oak, were accepted, their music departments were accepted with their orchestra and bands in the prestigious Association of Music Directors in Chicago, selected out of well over 1,000 applications. And the first time also that 2 schools from the same district were ever accepted. And when we see, as we did last month, these young students who coming in first place in the nation in their fields, or if we go to all of our schools and see the state championship trophies in academic, the arts, performing arts, and the visual arts, as well as athletic events. Or if we go to any of the high schools in the crisp fall day and see the many students proudly wearing their athletic jackets, their letter jackets that they have earned for excellence in over 20 different fields. Folks, we then see the milk and honey with which Klein, Texas has always been blessed. I want to thank all of you for this opportunity to speak to all of you, because I can now see, after all of that Klein's future is in good hands. So I'll just simply say thank you, thank all of you. Or as my ancestors probably would have said when they were becoming bilingual here in Texas, Vielen Dank, y'all.
Mr. Wendelick, thank you not only for your comments tonight, but the whole series. It's been very educational and entertaining. And thank you, Mr. Anderson, for coming up with the idea in the first place and talking Mr. Wendelick into this
He's got it all in
history
his
of
head.
Klein.
He's got it all up there.
That's incredible. We need to hear it.
And he was he provided a great segue in introducing and welcoming Dr. Champion. And at this point, I will turn the program over to Dr. Champion.
Thanks. And also a great segue with some of the names of our schools. We've got some students and teachers to recognize. And Dr. Merrick, I believe you're going to kick us off.
Yes, we are pleased to introduce students and staff members from Benningness Elementary and Hildebrandt Intermediate Schools. The principal of Benningness, Mrs. Proctor, will begin tonight, followed by Dr. Jones, the principal of Hildebrandt. So if you all will come forward, we will begin.
Good evening, Mr. President, members of the board, Dr. Champion, Ms. Spalding, and guests. Tonight, we have the honor of introducing 2 outstanding Benningness Elementary students and 1 distinguished teacher. I'm Dawn Proctor, principal at Benningness, and at this time, Ms. Mason, one of our assistant principals, will introduce our outstanding students.
Good evening. First, I would like you to meet Moria, better known as Mo Walden. Mo is a 5th grade student who has attended Benignus for the past 3 years. She is an AB honor roll student who is always deemed as a great friend and leader by her peers and her teachers. She enjoys learning new things every day and simply likes all of the subjects in school. She's made it a personal goal to strive harder in math so she can go farther in her future. Outside of school, Mo likes to dance and has recently begun volleyball. When she grows up, she plans to attend Grambling State University in Louisiana, just like her mother. And her dream job is to be a pediatric care nurse because she wants to love on babies all day. Mo is accompanied by her mom, Raquel, and dad, John. Please stand. Next, I would like to introduce Matthew Berry. Matthew began attending Benignus as a 2nd grader. He is an all-A honor roll student and participates in our district gifted and talented program. In addition, he has participated in the Spelling Bee, Technology Club, and Coding Club. Matthew has been the Benignus Spelling Bee champion 2 years in a row now, and he plans to win it again this year. Last year, he placed 2nd overall in the Klein ISD Spelling Bee. Matthew's goals are to go into the state spelling bee so he can represent Benignus at a higher level, and he plans to study hard for all of the advanced classes he plans to take as he wants to attend Harvard University.
There you go.
He plans to be an inventor or entrepreneur because he wants to bring his 3rd grade TPSB project, the iPhone X, to life. Matthew also has his very own YouTube channel, Minecraft Videos for Kids, and he does have business cards if you are interested. Matthew is joined by his mom, Susanna, dad, James, sister, McKelney, and his 3 grandparents. Please stand.
Finally, I'd like to introduce Miss Amy Judgett. Amy has been teaching for 10 years. She's a graduate of Sam Houston State University and began her teaching career in Spring ISD before we were very blessed to get her here in Klein. Amy is currently a developmental teacher for us and in the past has worked in various programs for children with autism. Ms. Judgett goes above and beyond for her students and for Benignus Elementary. She comes in early, stays late, and still finds time to give back to the community and even participates on a famous award-winning barbecue cook-off team, Extreme Texas Cookers. She was Teacher of the Year finalist for our campus last year and has been honored as Campus Teacher of the Year in years past. She strongly believes that every child can learn when given the right supports regardless of labels or identifiers. Ms. Judgett does her absolute best to prove this to others every day. Amy is a great asset to Klein ISD and all of our boys and girls. Prior to teaching in Klein, she worked in multiple areas as a parent at Kinley Elementary, Strock Intermediate, and Klein Collins. She's here tonight with her husband, James, her parents, her children, Jonathan and Samantha, and Zachary was not able to make it, but could you guys please stand?
Right here in the center. Well, first of all, I would like to give you this in recognition from the board here. I like a woman with a plan. And you already have for a pediatric nurse. Oh, God bless you for that, and just best wishes on these dreams and plans that you have. I know you're going to do it. And Matthew, I understand that you can spell any word. So we're going for year 3 on that one, all right? And to represent Klein. I'd like one of your business cards. It's Minecraft, is that it? My mind could use a little retuning. So. And I'm going to give you this in recognition. Oh, you're getting another business card. Oh, here's my card. All right, guys, you're going to have to try this. And I would never pronounce this name as it should be, as it's spelled. It's Judgett, and it's spelled D-Z-I-E-D-Z-I-C.
Violates
And with that,
every grammatical
I appreciate all
rule.
that you do with our developmental students and all students, because indeed every child can learn just at a different rate. Thank you for how you invest in our students and this school. Thank you. Thank you very much. Come forward.
smiles right here, ready?
Show your, oh yeah, there you go. Oh yeah, I'll take the stickers off. See, if I'd had brought Minecraft, I wouldn't.
Big smiles right here, ready? One more. Big smiles, 3, 2. Loved ones, if you want to take pictures, you can come right here.
Good evening, Mr. President, members of the board, Dr. Champion, Mrs. Spalding, and guests. Tonight I have the honor of introducing 2 outstanding Hildebrandt students and 1 distinguished teacher. I'm Dr. Jones, principal at Hildebrandt, and first we have Kinley Cole. Kinley is an active 8th grader on our campus who is dedicated to excellence in the classroom and in sports. Kinley is a member of our Mustang volleyball and track teams. She is a qualifying member of the National Junior Honor Society and a Klein academic team member. At the 7th grade awards ceremony last year, she received several awards, including All-A Honor Roll, and that was for the 2nd year in a row, the Duke University Tip Award, the Merit Social Studies Award, and the Most Inspirational Athlete. Outside of school, she participates in softball, junior FFA, and also Kinley volunteered during the summer at Vacation Bible School at Good Shepherd Church. All very, very important activities. Accompanying Kinley are Ralph and Kim Cole. Please stand. And Tanner and Alex. Okay. All right. All over. Okay. Next we have Jericho Bosco. Jericho is constantly smiling. He is a student who is always willing to help out around our campus and brings joy to those he encounters on a daily basis. Jericho is an athlete participating on our Hildebrandt football and track teams. His other school activities include being a proud member of our Mustang band, where he plays the flute. He was the student council secretary for the 2015-2016 school year and will serve as our vice president this year. He promotes friendliness on campus by being a member of our No Place for Hate Club, and that's our anti-bullying club. Academically, Jericho was an AB Honor Roll student his 6th and 7th grade year. For 8th grade, he is a qualifying member of National Junior Honor Society. Outside of school, Jericho is also an active member with his church, that's Northwestern Baptist Church. He also volunteers in his community in his spare time. And accompanying Jericho tonight are his parents, Jeanette and Paul Bosco. Please stand. Jeanette can make it. And finally, I'd like to introduce Karen Faniff. Coach Faniff is an exceptional member of our staff who is constantly welcoming students to her class. She has a bachelor's and a master's degree from Stephen F. Austin University. I'm a Bearcat, so I'm not going to hold that against her. Okay. And Karen has been in the teaching profession for 22 years. Coach Faniff teaches PE and coaches our girls' volleyball, basketball, and track teams. She's responsible also for our intramural program, which allows students on all grade levels to stay active and be involved on our campus. A lot of hard work goes into that. Outside of school, she donates her time by volunteering for Special Olympics. Additionally, she has run many 5K races, so none of us can keep up with her. Just don't even try. And she raises, which raise support for breast cancer awareness and a variety of other organizations. She sums up her thoughts on teaching with a quote: So often we are told that we change the lives of our students we teach. I have met so many who have truly changed mine. It is a wonderful cycle. Coach Faniff touches lives daily with her calming and disarming demeanor and dedication to our students at Hildebrand. And with Coach Faniff tonight are her parents, Alan and Margie Faniff.
So I'm going to start off with the admission of having a severe or strong bias for Hildebrand. 6 of our 6 children went to Hildebrand and survived. More importantly, the teachers survived. So, Kinley, you're a volleyball player?
Not this season.
Okay. And FFA?
Yes.
So are you raising an animal right now?
Not this year.
She's got to take some time off.
Congratulations, Jericho. How's the football team looking? You started playing yet? Okay. Oh, yeah. I always played intermediate football on Monday and Tuesday. Right? Monday and Tuesday?
Mhm.
And then JV Wednesday, Thursday, so it's all week this week. Now, Ms. Faniff had to come up and reintroduce herself to me and remind me that 2 of our daughters, had her probably back in 1998, 99, played volleyball. Were quite a tribute to your tenure and also the influence. And when she spoke to me, I was just doing some math down there. 6 kids, 12 years. We probably had probably 10% of all Klein teachers have taught our kids at one time. Several hundred. We figure in high school they got 6 or 7 teachers. So thank you so much. Both our daughters have stayed out of prison, so you have some positive influence on them. So thank you very much and congratulate you on this honor. And Dr. Coffey, great job.
Loved ones, if you want to take pictures. Yeah, ready? 1, 2, 3. Looks like 6. I should have done it. Oh, no.
The kid looked just like his dad. I mean, awesome. Awesome.
And Judy Ramato's moving to the mic for our TASB award tonight. We're recognizing InvestTex Credit Union.
We'll give them just a few minutes to get up here and join me. Is that okay?
Yes.
Right. Welcome. Dr. Champion, President Smith, board members, Ms. Spalding, and guests. TASB's program called Stand Up for Texas Public Schools recognizes businesses and organizations that support public schools in the community. Klein ISD is proud to recognize our business partners and to publicly thank them each month. Our honoree for September is InvestTex Credit Union. Joining us tonight is CEO Keith Kearney. Keith, raise your hand.
There we go.
Jana Gonzalez, VP of Marketing. Gary Hugo, VP of Branch Administration. Kelly Payne, VP of Human Resources. Gail Russell, VP of Facilities. Kathy Paraskos, the board chairman. And Teresa Dossman, board member. We appreciate you guys being here. Keith and his team are simply amazing business partners.
Their history began as a teachers' credit union in 1952 as the Aldine Teacher Credit Union, so their roots and their heart is with public education. Just a few of their Klein partnerships include, and it's a long list, providing over 4,000 academic calendars for classroom teachers, sponsoring lunch for the new teacher orientation, providing products and prizes for the campus champions, donating gift cards for teacher appreciation and books, board games and bikes for students at multiple campuses, serving on the board of directors and sponsoring and volunteering at numerous events for the Klein ISD Education Foundation, supporting Klein Oak High School Reading Project and the Niche Elementary Science War Night, and sponsoring the Unite for Understanding Diversity Calendar. And that's just a sampling of the things that they do in Klein. Their activities grow every year, and their personal involvement does as well at our campuses. We truly appreciate the service and mentoring spirit of Keith Kearney and the entire InvestTex team. So it is with great pride that we recognize InvestTex Credit Union for standing up for public education and honor them with a Stand Up for Texas Public Schools Award for always working to benefit the children of Klein ISD.
Now we come to the point in our program where we honor scouts. So we know that Rachel is here. Are there any other scouts in the audience tonight? Great. A microphone is going to come your way. Could you introduce yourself by telling us your name, your troop, your school, and why you're here? That is a merit badge if you're working on one.
And it's up on the screen.
Yeah, those items are on the screen if you need help running down through these.
Okay. I'm Ruggie Haynes. My troop number is 332. I am homeschooled, and the merit badge I'm working on is citizenship in the community.
I'm Natalie Rawl. My troop number is 13656. I attend Roth Elementary, and the badge I'm working on is Citizen.
Thank you to both of you. It's an honor to have you here tonight. We'll now take an intermission to allow the board to meet the students, teachers, employees, and scouts that have been honored tonight. So if you could all line up on our left, your right, we'll come out and we'd love to shake your hand. May I have your attention, please? We'll now continue our meeting with citizen inquiry, if any. Mr. Simzak, has anybody signed up?
No, sir, none.
And if there's nobody that wants to address the board, we'll move on. And Dr. Champion has some reports.
Right, we're going to start tonight with Jenny McGowan is going to kick us off for our 2016 accountability results.
Thank you, Dr. Champion, President Smith, members of the board, Ms. Spalding, and guests. We're delighted to be here tonight to share an overview of our 2016 accountability reports. Director of Assessment and Accountability, Nancy Webster, is here. And before she gets started, I'd just like to say thank you to both Nancy and also to Vicki James, our Executive Director for Research, Accountability, and Data. They both do an outstanding job taking inordinate amounts of data and making it useful and meaningful for all of us in our various roles, and I appreciate that. As we prepared for this evening's presentation, I just want to make two comments. First, our goal is to share not only the things that we are very proud of as a district with our accountability this year, but also the areas that we are well aware of need continuous improvement and growth. So you'll see that reflected in the report. Additionally, although we do have a moving target with our passing standard each year with our accountability system in its current state, we did make efforts to be able to provide a comparison between last year's performance and this year's performance, not only for this evening, but also for the use of our campus principals as they guide student learning on their campus. So at this time, Nancy Webster will come forward and give the report.
Mr. President, members of the board, Dr. Champion, Ms. Spalding, it's my pleasure to present an overview of 2016 STAR results as well as 2016 accountability. So let's go ahead and take a look at our first slide. So included in this slide is a chart describing this year's 3rd through 8th grade STAR reading performance. Please know that 5th and 8th grade both have a second opportunity to meet standard, whereas other grade levels only have one opportunity. Included within this chart is a comparison between this year and last year's STAR 3 through 8th grade reading performance. Please note, this summary displays performance during spring 2015 to performance during spring 2016, but both at the level 2 phase in 1 standard. That's the 14-15 passing standard. Please know this year was the 15-16 passing standard, so we were kind of looking backwards. But this is the best way that we can give you an apples to apples type of comparison. Included within this chart is this year's 3rd through 8th grade mathematics performance. Reminder, 5th and 8th grade both have a second opportunity to pass, whereas other grade levels only have one opportunity. All right, so now let's look backwards. Included within this chart is a comparison between this year's results at the 15 standard compared to last year's 3rd through 8th grade math performance, also at the 2015 standard. Additionally, only the first administration of 5th and 8th grade math results are included because in 2015 there was only one opportunity to pass. So with that, we tried to give you the best apples to apples type of comparison as well. Included within this chart is this year's STAR writing, science, and social studies performance. And once again is a comparison with these same subjects, comparing last year's performance at the 14-15 standard and this year's performance also at the 14-15 standard. What is interesting here is that even though we struggle with 8th grade social studies, we are making improvements over time. So, before I delve into these EOC results, I want to explain something. The results represented by the red columns include students at 2 different passing standards. Students taking an EOC for the first time during the 15-16 school year are required to meet a higher level 2 15-16 passing standard, whereas students who tested prior to this school year meet the lower level 2 phase in 1 standard, or the 14-15 passing standard. Think of it like an interest rate when you purchase a home. When you apply for a mortgage, you lock in your interest rate. That's just like a student would lock in their passing standard for all of their subsequent EOCs based on the first time that they test. So y'all ready to move on to 2016 accountability? All right, so here's a simplified chart highlighting some of the most important features of the 2016 State Accountability System. I think y'all seen this before. Notice the targets are listed for each of the 4 indices in the quadrants of this circle. These are the targets that must be met by each campus in the district. While the color coding on this chart looks very similar to ones you've seen in the past, the rules for 2016 accountability, which tests are included, as well as the passing standard, have changed when compared to prior years. This year, the following factors are the biggest roadblocks in comparing last year's accountability scores to this year's accountability scores. Number 1, the exclusion of 3 through 8 mathematics results, as well as 2 specialized versions of STAR assessments used to measure many of our students with learning disabilities. Were excluded in 2015 and included this year. Growth from 4th to 7th grade writing was included in 2015, but excluded this year due to a redesign of the writing test. And then an increased passing standard came into play this year that wasn't in play last year. So let's look and see how we did. So these green lines running across each of these columns is the state target, and then the height of the columns represents Klein's performance. And as you can see, we're well above those green lines, the height of those columns. So let's talk about rating labels. In order to receive a Met Standard rating, you have to meet standard on Index 3, Index 4, and either Index 1 or Index 2. If you don't meet that, your rating is improvement required. This year, Klein ISD, as well as every other year, attained a Met Standard rating. 44 out of 44 campuses also attained a Met Standard rating. The 44th campus is the Grace England Early Childhood Pre-K Center, and its accountability is tied to the districts. So in other words, if the district attains a Met Standard rating, so does the Grace England Center as well. Please know all campuses did not just meet all 4 index targets. They exceeded the index targets for all 4 indices. You can see the index scores achieved for each campus in the district within the supporting documentation for this presentation. So, we'll have more distinction or more information, especially those distinction designations, and those will be publicly released on September 16th. Remember, this is how our campuses are compared to 40 campuses just like them. They have very similar demographics, and I look forward to sharing more with you in the very near future. Any questions?
Questions?
Yeah. Can you go back up to the slide with the green bars?
Okay, whoops. Here we go.
Is that the same as we have? No. Is that what we have? Close enough. So the green bar as our goal, are we looking at that as, I'll just put it as a sports metaphor. Is that kind of, is that like a 500 season if we achieve that green bar, or are we going to start in the spirit of continuous improvement, move that bar up and try to finish kind of a whole lot higher than just 500? That looks like those bars are achievable. Every time they're achievable. So
well, there's
why
two.
measure?
Yeah, sorry for interrupting. One of the most interesting things when you think about Index 1, last year the Index 1 target was 60. This year the Index 1 target was 60. But what's interesting is the passing standard increased this year. And so we have to have students jump over, actually campuses in the district, jump over that same bar, but yet in order to get there, you've got to do a lot more work to get there, because you've got to have students pass a test and get a few more questions correct in order to pass each of their tests.
And again, the green bar is simply the state's bar to
Absolutely.
say, have you, I mean, binary, did you meet standard or not? And so it's good point made with it did kind of increase a little bit internally, but the bar is going to be what the bar is. The goal in terms of continuous improvement, I would say, is for our number to increase. So from an 81 to wherever it's going to land next. Part of a larger conversation I think we need to have about measures and what are the key measures that we want to be honed in on as a school district. And is this part of it, or is it not? Is this something that we simply say, hey, here's what the state says, here's what we need to do with state accountability, and then we're going to focus on whatever the other pieces might be?
I mean, this is good optics as far as measuring against the state, but as we dive into it more internally, I'd love for us to have our own.
Totally
own
agree.
goal that we would like to
Totally
Absolutely.
agree. Totally agree. Have a very clear set of rigorous measures that we say, here's what success looks like in Klein ISD.
Great, thank you. Thank you both.
On September 16th, you said the report will be out. Is that when we get the A through F?
No, that's going to come out in 2018 accountability.
Oh, 18,
You
okay.
will get a preview of A through F ratings at the end of December, right at the beginning of January, based on 2016 results. So that's why you've heard so much about it in the press.
Not that I agree with it. I'm
Right.
just questioning.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it will be fascinating,
fascinating
how
is
that
a word.
plays out. And I think that there was some intentionality around it coming out in December with the legislative session coming the month after, so that we can have some conversations then to say, is this really what we want? Because whether they are preliminary or they're official, they're going to be reported as A through F, and so
Right.
it has all the effect of it being an actual rating that we're going to have.
Right. Around Christmas, that's nice.
That is. That's going to be a great Christmas for all of us, yes. Real excited.
I'm going to improve my attitude.
On the 44 out of 44, do you have any feel for comparably sized districts in our Region 4, whatever, large districts, how they did on that?
This year, a lot of the campuses met standard. I'd really have to go through and comb through each of the campuses for each of our surrounding districts, and I can get you those specific metrics.
Was it last year we had one campus that
Yes.
needs improvement? And then that campus goes through some set of hurdles in order to get back into the good graces?
Absolutely, in order to meet standard, and they did.
And they did.
Absolutely.
So the hoops are over as long as we stay.
Absolutely.
Yeah, they're considered on a what's it called?
Formally improvement required.
Yes, formally improvement required. So you're still on a list. Let's be clear.
Formally,
Right. It's kind of
okay.
like
Some
immediate
more
past
words.
president. Right. 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 But not as much fun.
Right.
Right.
Good for there, though.
Any other questions? Okay, I have one.
All right.
First of all, thank you. Again, you've taken a lot of complicated data and make it appear to be fairly simple, and we know it's not. When you normalize a prior year to current year or most recent year, I guess one way to do that is the number of questions, but are not the questions more difficult from year to year? And how do you do that?
The questions themselves are not necessarily more difficult. If we were to keep the test at the same passing standard from here on out, the test would have to be of equal difficulty. Each year as the passing standard increases, they have to get about 2 more questions correct in order to meet standard. And so that difficulty, just by nature of having to get more questions correct, that difficulty is going to ratchet up over time.
So the questions are of consistent difficulty.
Some are and some are not. They do vary, but the test as a whole is supposed to have an articulated level of difficulty.
Okay, good. Thank you.
You're welcome.
First item for approval, our first item is for the approval of administrators, and it has 4 parts. We will vote on all 4 parts as one motion unless there is a request from the board to vote on them individually. May I have a motion naming Mr. Clay Huggins as principal of Club Intermediate School, Mr. Thomas Hensley as principal of Dory Intermediate School, Ms. Dana Hernandez as elementary executive director of teaching and learning, and Ms. Kelly Schumacher as the secondary executive director of teaching and learning.
I so move. Second.
All those in favor? Motion passes 6-0. Welcome and congratulations to you all. And now we'd like you to stand and introduce any guests that may be here tonight. Mr. Huggins.
Here they come. Here come the troops.
All right.
Sweet.
So this is my better half, my wife Suzanne, and my mom, my 3 kiddos, Liam and Allie and Evie, my dad Willie, and then my workmate Marilyn Scarborough and Alexander Lammers, and my former boss, Ms. Jessica Hendricks. Thank you guys.
Mr. Hensley.
Yes.
No problem. On the family side, I have my wife Heather, daughter Allie, mother-in-law Gail, Gary Dory, Hilda Dory, Geraldine Harmeyer, and thank you for support. Professionally, I have Dr. Brian Greeny in South Carolina, who professionally have taught me so much, and without these two, I would not be here. So, very indebted to these two.
Very nice.
Thank you very much.
Ms. Hernandez.
Well, I have the crew here tonight as always. First of all, I want to introduce my family. My husband, Bo Hernandez, who is a teacher and coach at Klein Oak and puts up with me all the time, so thank you, Bo. My mom and dad, my biggest cheerleaders, Beverly and Jerry Solanish, who are longtime residents of Memorial Northwest. And thank you for all of your support and with me in raising my children too. And professionally, I have my very dear friend and wonderful associate principal of Mahaffey Elementary, Christy Petros. Christy has been pivotal in helping to successfully open our school. It's been an awesome school year, living out our core values and helping me to find the best educators to serve our kids in our community. It's been a great start. And of course, Anjali Khanna, who is my secretary at Brill and at Mahaffey, and she has been with me here every single step of the way, and we've learned a lot, and thanks to the facilities team and everybody who's been hugely successful in the opening of Mahaffey. It's been a great start, and so thank you to everybody. And I also want to thank Jenny McGowan, who I'm extremely excited to work under her leadership, and equally to work with Kelly Schumacher in partnering and serving our school district. This is a great honor, and we're real excited about the 3 of us getting to work together, so thank you all.
And Ms. Schumacher.
Thanks, Dana. Now Tim's expecting me to say nice things. I have my husband Tim, my son Trent, and of course Jenny and Dana and other members of our teaching and learning team, and I'm really excited to be a part of that. And then many friends and colleagues around the room that I've worked with over the past 20 years, so I'm excited to be back and I'm appreciative. Thank you.
Again, congratulations to you all and best wishes for your future challenges. Next item for consideration and approval is the settlement agreement with Navistar Inc. IC Bus LLC and Longhorn Bus Sales LLC. I have a motion.
I so move.
I second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Motion passes 6-0. And we will pause for a second to allow people to take off. And thank you for coming.
Are you related, Wonderlick and Mr. Dory?
Let me introduce the matriarchs of the Dory family here.
All right.
This is Hilda Dory, my aunt, and this is her brother right here. Anyway, thanks for asking and thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Great to have you here.
Thank you so much.
Wonderlick's sister.
Next, we have approval to grant authority to the superintendent to negotiate and execute the joint election agreement with Harris County for the school board election to be held on Tuesday, November 8th. May I have a motion?
Second.
Any discussion? All those,
Who was that first?
Bill.
all those
Who
in
made
favor?
the mo-
Bill did.
All those in favor? Motion passes 6-0. Next item is the consideration of the proposed amendment to the election order to revise the date of the ballot drawing and the statutory reference in paragraph 5 regarding the electronic voting system. May I have a motion?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Motion passes 6-0. Next is the approval of the School Priority Month Resolution. May I have a motion?
I so moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Motion passes 6-0. We'll now consider for approval project initiation for the North Crest Ag Facility. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Motion passes 6-0. Next, we have the approval of the project initiation for the 2017 Facility Renovation Project, MEP. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Motion passes 6-0. Next, we have the approval of the project initiation for the 2017 Facility Renovation Project, Roofing. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Motion passes 6-0. Next item is a consideration of the guaranteed maximum price for intermediate school number 10. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Motion passes 6-0. Moving on to the consent agenda, are there any items that you wish to remove from the consent agenda? Ms. Reitmeyer?
None.
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 None. None.
And none. All those in favor of the consent agenda? Motion passes 6-0. Next, I'll move on to the minutes of the regular meeting held on August 8th and the minutes of 2 special meetings on August 29th. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Motion passes 6-0. Moving on to the calendar review, please note the following events. September 14th, this Wednesday, is the VIP luncheon at Benford Elementary. September 20th, Town Hall meeting at the Multipurpose Center, and another Town Hall meeting on the 22nd at Kaiser Elementary. September 23rd to the 25th is the TASB Conference here in Houston this year. And then next month, October 13th, please take note that the location for the legislators' visit to school is updated to include Klein Collins and Zwink. And now we're ready for board member comments. Ms. Reitmeyer.
I'd like to make comment from one agency that has partnered with our schools, our Title I schools, and that's Bridging for Tomorrow. They delivered 2,500 books this year to 500 books for 5 schools. It's a great contribution, and 1,000 new shoes. They go to the school and say, what do you need? Instead of saying, we have backpacks or we have supplies. And they have done that for the last couple of weeks. And our superintendent's wife, Marcy Champion, I understand, has been part of the delivery of those shoes. So thank you for jumping into our community and being a part of it in such a, well, it's not you, it's your wife.
I was going to say, I'll take full credit, you bet.
Convey
You
the
bet,
message.
I shall, yes ma'am, yes ma'am.
I've got a couple real quick, please. If you haven't seen in the community impact paper, there was a great article about Bob Anderson written by Julie Butterfield. Is she here tonight? No. But it talked about his parent university and the ways he goes about Family Engagement Day and the things that have to happen in his community to make a difference, and just the way it was very well written, and it shows just the kind of leader he is. And that's, I mean, people like him, we have several of these stars, so it's just it's great to see, you know, someone's name and picture like this in ink. I think that's an honor to him.
It is.
By all means, and it kind of fits in with what we heard tonight, especially with that kid Matthew Berry, who is the young boy who was honored. And just to listen to him is really typical of the DNA that you see around here with our with the students, with the whole, with the way everyone progresses through just striving for excellence. You know, he made comments about wanting to take the spelling bee championship to a much higher level, to state, and then at his age already has Harvard as a target. So, you know, I don't know how many people get that focused on those kind of goals, but those are the kind that I bet we'll be honoring at a different kind of dinner at Shirley Acres one night.
Mm-hmm.
But that's that gets contagious, and that's just good to see. That's it.
Great.
Thank you.
Congratulations to our new principals. Welcome back. We knew you couldn't stay away, Kelly. And everything I'm hearing in the community, Dr. Champion, you haven't screwed anything up yet.
It's been a month, so good.
Keep it up.
Mr. Mann.
I read through 14 pages of convocation comments, and I must say this board did a good job in hiring a superintendent. Two things. One, I'd like to get another board member or more on an agenda item, and that would be, Ronnie, you and I have talked about signage on the back of the multipurpose center that says Klein ISD. And if we need to put that as an agenda item, or we just need to ask administration to put together a proposal on some signage on the back of the multipurpose center.
Visible from the grand
From Highway
parking.
99.
Yeah.
From,
We can do that.
the second one would be, Steve, you and I talked earlier about getting a January agenda item to move the principal or equivalent away from the board level. So I'll be the second if you want to be the primary on that. We'll get that on the agenda.
Can we just reverse whatever we...
Just reverse what we
Yeah.
did. Reverse whatever you did. It went higher than principal. It went through director. But if you just want to go back to the way it was.
The way it was.
Yeah.
The way we were.
The way you were. And do you want to reverse the purchasing part as well at the same
Yeah,
time?
whatever.
Sure.
Good idea.
Yeah. So there's two board members that will ask for that. And the last thing I've got is the 11th of next month is the Klein Education Foundation Golf Tournament. If any of you all are participating, Ronnie and I are going to be on a team, and you'll just have to fight to get ahead of us. Be a great event, and the foundation will raise a lot of money for our students and our teachers and grants. So thank you for going that direction.
I just want to say, I think I'm like in the twilight zone. We're going to be done before 8:30, and there was no awards for the finance department. Thank you, everything's good.
He's gonna cry. He's gonna cry.
Get a
That's it.
certificate.
Is that a tear? Is that a tear?
That was good. Well done. I just have a couple comments, and Mr. Mann alluded to it, but the kickoff session this year at Champ Forest Baptist Church was, I haven't seen an event that pumped up people so much and got them excited about the school year. So congratulations to Dr. Champion, Judy Romano, and the many other people that orchestrated that event. It was quite well done. And then a reminder to fellow board members, I'm going to be out of town for the rest of the month. Sorry I'm going to miss the 2 town hall meetings, but you know, if you can make it, I would encourage anybody that can make it to attend those events. And with that, we'll go to Dr. Champion.
Sure. I'd like to celebrate Saturday. We had 90 volunteers for our Project Reach Out Walk, and which took teams of folks into our high school students who we're reaching out to and saying, "Come on to school, come on." And it's incredible. I had the honor of being part of the Klein Oak team that went out. What's incredible is you had 90 volunteers giving up their Saturday morning, and it ends up being a handful of students that you get back. But it is a real tribute to the heart and to the belief system in this school district that's true. If it were 90 volunteers and you got back 300, I mean, you'd be like, wow, that's a really, but 90 volunteers for 16 commitments from kids is incredible. And to me, it sends a very clear message that in Klein ISD, every student matters. And so I just wanted to have a celebration to Angie, that whole team, and then all those volunteers who went out into homes to visit with kids. It was awesome.
Great.
Very good. If there are no objections, it's now 8:31, and this meeting is adjourned.